It Happened on the Job, the podcast for relatable conversations with contractors. Sponsored by Goodman Insurance.
Welcome to It Happened on the Job, episode 141 today. My name is Mike. That's Brian.
Yo.
Before we get started here, we want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by the Buildsters. Check out thebuildsters.com to find out how to become an accredited Buildsters Pro member today. You'll instantly become part of the network of the best suppliers, manufacturers, and contractors in the industry, where you'll have the ability to showcase your work to thousands of qualified buyers. Stop paying for leads that don't convert and become a Buildsters Pro member today. Our guest, Tim Nobles of Nobles Construction Components. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Tim.
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks
Good,
so
man.
much for taking the time here to join us. We appreciate it.
Well,
Yeah, we
thank
do.
you. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. So give us your story. We want to hear how you got into this industry, how you got to where you are today, and all the things in between.
I grew up in a family of builders. My dad was a carpenter, a little contractor sometimes. Sometimes he worked for others, sometimes for himself. And of course, I went to work. I graduated on a Friday, and I joined the Carpenters Union on the following Monday, and went to work on a project, and been working ever since. I used to race motocross. I made it up to the professional level, so I needed weekends off, and I needed to make decent money and have good insurance because I broke lots of bones and spent lots of money. But hey, it was a good experience. I don't regret it. That's why my neck doesn't turn very well. That was my last injury, but
That's great. How long did you do that for?
quite a while, from about 19. I had a pro license from about 1989 to 2001.
No
It's
kidding.
rough. Yeah, it's a rough sport, but it gets in your blood, and that's one reason I became I got into supervisory type positions in construction, because I kept showing up to the job with broken bones. I was building some big high schools down in the Central Valley of California, and I kept showing up with a broken leg or arm, so they made me a foreman. And then it just progressed from there. And then that big recession we had, back in 07, 08, I was running a company in Reno, and the bottom fell out of everything, and I was kind of left without a job. But and then an opportunity came up. The company I was with, we were coming out of that recession back in whatever year that was. I stayed working for that company for about 3 years, but we weren't making any money. I was doing all the estimating, bidding jobs. That you bid a job and someone would take it for half what your bid was, because people were desperate. So,
Yeah.
And I found a project in San Francisco, pretty large. We were a wood frame subcontractor based out of Reno, Nevada, and we built a lot of stuff around Reno, Tahoe, and Squaw Valley, North Star, all that stuff up there, and big projects. And it all just came to a screeching halt. So my former boss, he made good money when the times were good, so he kept me on payroll. We kept trying to bid stuff, and I found a project in San Francisco. The economy was finally starting to turn. There was a big wood frame project right down by, well, at that time it was called AT&T Park. I forget what it's called now, where the Giants play. But I chased it down to we were going to go frame it, and then I decided, I bid it to prefabricate it, because we were a shop that we had a reputation in the Reno Tahoe area as we prefabbed a lot of our own stuff. Like if we built a clubhouse at Tahoe, for instance, at a golf course, the general contractor would be digging footings, and we'd be out in the parking lot prefabbing all the walls and the roof, and so we got a reputation as we weren't the cheapest, but we were the fastest, and we could close the building up quick. In Tahoe, that's really important to close it,
weather,
especially with seasons. Yeah,
right. So, and I taught myself computer modeling at that time, and it was kind of a hobby, and I dug deeper and deeper into it while we were doing that, working for that company. And so then I started chasing this big project in San Francisco, and this is after that recession, which was terrible.
I remember. Yeah.
I mean, there was just nothing. And it was my former boss he didn't want to go frame that job because we were a framing subcontractor. We were a union shop, and he didn't want it, but he told me, well, give him a price to prefab all the walls and the floor systems. And so I approached these people, and pretty soon, I was negotiating with them. We were about ready to sign contracts. We were going to prefab the walls, the wood frame walls, and I tried to talk him into letting us prefab the floor systems. And they didn't want to do that because it had never really been done on a large scale, and they didn't think it was doable. So, I worked on this project for a number of months during the design and the pre-construction phase. And then at the last minute, my boss pulled the plug on it and said, I don't want to do that job. And I said, well, why not? We finally got some work. And he had a good point. He says, well, I don't think they're going to pay me on time and stuff. And, this guy'd been around the block. He knew about construction. His favorite saying was, I never lost any money on a job I didn't get. And, and there's a lot of truth to that. Some people chase work, and then you find out that, the contractor or the owner is slow to pay, or they don't pay on, or they, it's a rough and tumble game out there.
Yeah.
I respected what he said. I mean, so I chased down another project. By then the economy was turning, and it turned quickly in the Bay Area. We were based out of Reno, but the Bay Area was coming to life, and a lot of the big wood frame subcontractors in the Bay Area, especially the big union ones, they couldn't ride out that recession. They closed their doors, and all of a sudden there was so much work on the books, and these people couldn't get anybody to even bid it. And so I approached my boss about bidding another project down at Stanford University. It was you've heard of the Ronald McDonald houses that they do at the Ronald McDonald House at Stanford University. And my former boss, I talked him into bidding it to actually go down and build it. And he was okay with that. And then I was ready to go down and sign contracts to do this job. And my boss sends me an email. Sorry, I'm closing our doors effective immediately. And it was a surprise, but he just decided he'd had enough, and he was done. So I go into this meeting with this company out of Palo Alto that I'd actually worked for years previous as a superintendent. And that's kind of how I had a contact about this Stanford project. And I walk into, they're a pretty, high-end company. They do pretty much exclusively cost plus type projects at Stanford and all over the Bay Area. So I walk into their boardroom, and they're ready to sign all these contracts, and I say, hey, we're out of business. And
sorry.
And like I said, at the time they couldn't find people to bid stuff because it suddenly turned so fast. So I told them, well, I can build this job for you. I'll go get my license, and and they say, okay, this is great, because it's 9 months away before the job would start. And so I went home and told my wife, I'm just going to go get my contractor's license and, bite the bullet. And we're going to go after this, going to do this first big project. And she thought I was crazy. But then in the meantime, the project that my boss had walked away from, this had been about a year since he walked away from that job that I, wanted to prefab. And they built it with another company. And it was a big project. It took up like 2 city blocks, a 5-story wood frame podium deck, and
wow.
it caught on fire. They had it all framed almost they had the roof framed, and it caught on fire, burned to the ground. One of the biggest fires in the last 40 years in San Francisco. Jeez. It was all over the news. I forget what year that was. Man, I'm getting old. 7 or 8 years ago, if you looked up Mission Bay fire in San Francisco, it was a big fire, and it burned that thing right to the podium deck. It was just a pile of black ash, and it was crazy. And so the company that I had been negotiating with previous to prefab that job, they called me and asked me did you hear about this fire? I said, actually, I did, because I saw it on the news, and I said that looked like that job I was going to do. And he says, would you like to do this job? And I said, well, heck yeah, because I don't even have a job. So he goes, okay, is your price still good? And I said, yeah. and so I stayed up all night, double checked numbers and stuff. And then he called me back, says, sorry, but per the insurance requirements for this job that had burned down, they got prefab wall panels from another company, and they had a framer and they framed it all. He says, well, we got to get our wall panels from the same company from the first go around.
Yeah.
So that's when I told him, well, let me do floor panels for you, because remember before he didn't want to try them because it was, unproven. And so he said, convince me. So I had nothing better to do. So I stayed up all night and modeled up some units and, put a big thing together and shot him an email and said, hey, this is how I propose to do it, because I had done it before with our own company. We prefab floors on some decent sized projects. And so then he says, okay, he was convinced, and then he needed a price. So I stayed up for 2 more nights and cranked up, a bunch of estimations out and takeoffs. And that's what I did, was an estimator for years. So I convinced him to do it, basically. So then I had a contract to build this, 200,000 square foot apartment building.
Jeez, man.
And I didn't even have a place to do it. I got a lot.
Make it till you make it, right?
Yeah, I got a lot of guts. I guess it comes from racing dirt bikes. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in a. It was exciting, but I was like, oh man, now I got to figure out how I'm going to do this. And so I called up. We're in a little tiny town way up north called Susanville. Most people have probably never heard of it. It's between Reno and Redding, and used to be lumber and ranching, and now we're mostly like a prison town. We have 2 very large state prisons there, federal prison, Army base, and we had an old lumber mill, Sierra Pacific Industries. So I called them up and asked them if I could lease their old mill. It had been decommissioned, it had been sitting vacant for 10 years, and I worked a deal and rented the mill from them for peanuts, basically, because it was basically a tear down, the mill was. And so I went out there on a wing and a prayer and figured this thing out, and we did that first project, and it was a huge success. So after that, I hired a few. I had about 15 or 20 employees at that time, but the job, you got to remember, this building burned down, and it was market rate apartments downtown San Francisco. There's a waiting list to get these.
I was going to say that. Yeah, this got to be a quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Yeah, they were desperate to build this thing, fast. And the company I did the rebuild for, they were data junkies. They kept a track of everything when they built it the first time. So they knew how many man hours it took and how many days to do each floor and all this. And with my product, they shaved, months off their schedule.
Wow.
So they were very pleased. And so that got my foot in the door. And so then my phone started ringing off the hook. And so in the meantime, that was 7 years ago, almost 7 years ago in May. So since that time, we've built about, I haven't calculated in a while, probably about 5 million square feet of apartments in the Bay Area. And we specialize in the floors and the roofs. And there's really nobody else doing it what we do on a large scale. And a lot of people build wall panels, and there's a lot of wall panel manufacturers out there, but really nobody doing floors, because it's hard work. It's not easy. It takes a lot of modeling, there's a lot of, I'm a computer geek. Without computer modeling and stuff, and building information modeling, it's impossible. But it still takes a lot of having the old carpenter type how to create these panels that can be assembled and erected, and we've learned a lot. Like you said, fake it till you make it.
Right.
But I got a great team now. We're up to about 50 employees, and
50.
Yeah. And,
jeez.
And we build about 5,000 feet a day in our factory. And we're not, a lot of people think that we're like all automated and stuff. And no, we're not. And I tell people that we really, doing what we do, you can't really be automated. I have some competition that they have $100 million factories and stuff, and they're pretty automated, but they're building like single family homes and fourplexes and stuff. They're not building
cookie cutter. Yeah.
They're not doing type 3 and type 5 humongous 2, 3, 4, 500,000 square foot apartment complexes in downtown San Francisco. And I tell people this all the time. Our assembly line we're building like a Ford F-150 and a Mercedes coupe and a Hyundai all on the same assembly line in a matter of minutes, and you can't automate that.
Right.
It's just old-fashioned hard work, and more. It all starts with the model, though. I mean, we're pretty sophisticated with our computer modeling and all that stuff. But in our factory, it's just carpenters with saws and nail guns. We got big radial arm saws and stuff, but there's so many components go into one of our floor panels that you can have fire treated glue lambs, 3.5-inch LVL, 1 3/4-inch LVL. You got a different series of eye joists. You got hangers. You got fire treated plywood, regular plywood blocking, and one panel might have 40 different objects in it, and the next panel might just have 4 or 5 and be a real simple one, because we build just in time.
Right.
We don't try to build all of the same panel 100 times over. We build these apartments in the sequence they're going to be erected. So it's been quite a
yeah, that sounds I mean, like you said, the planning that goes into once the design is done, kind of the logistics and getting those built has got to be.
Yeah, that's a lot of it, a lot of logistics. And when I first started, I didn't know what I was getting into as far as trucking. These are big awkward loads. Our panels we call them a natural panel is going to be 8 feet wide by however long it happens to span. And some of our panels can be up to 10. We can go up to 12 feet wide on the roads. And so the trucking is a huge, and I farmed out my trucking at first, and now I have in-house trucking. We have a bunch of trucks and trailers, and that saved me a lot of money. I think my trucking guy that I hired the first year I was in business, he made more money than I did.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, well, and you can control it too, right? I mean, it's a lot of not waiting on somebody else.
Right. Yeah. Because the trucking, and that's another thing about what we do. The logistics is just crazy. The trucking all this stuff down. There's so many components to keep track of, and you got a tower. You got a project that might have 2 tower cranes and 50 carpenters, and tower cranes. You're
trying to pull a 53-foot flatbed into it.
Yeah, and you're trying to pull in there, and you don't want to be late, or they get pretty pissed off, or if you get stuck in a snowstorm, because we're up in the mountains,
Yeah.
But yeah, we've the trucking side has been a whole, because that's just a whole nother animal, and and we get better at everything we do. We improve all the time, and I don't use sophisticated software for what we do either. I have the big companies like Autodesk and MyTech, and those people, they make really good software, but software can't think like a human still. And they make really good software for walls. We make wall panels as well. In fact, the biggest job I ever did was downtown San Francisco. It was 550,000 square feet, and we did all the walls and the floors. And I almost went out of business on that job because I learned a lesson the hard way about what my boss was telling me about, never lost any money on a job he didn't get. I let these people beat me down at first, and I went in a little too cheap. And but I learned a lot, and it was a learning experience.
Yeah, still here today to talk about it.
A painful learning experience.
Right. Yeah. Right. So I would imagine you guys are doing the installation for these panels as well, right?
No, that's the other thing that I really have no desire to. We're a manufacturer, so
really,
So
I'm thinking as a business owner right now and an artist, right? Like that's what I feel you are, right? You're putting these things together and dreaming them up and creating them and all the logistics that go into getting them all the way there. And then you don't even get the satisfaction of putting them in, and like actually, you know what I mean? Or like you're leaving it up to somebody else that could screw up, like putting together your work.
I believe me, I've considered getting, becoming a contractor and installing them as well. And in fact, I think my wife would kill me. Yeah, I get the satisfaction because I get to go to the jobs and see them.
Right.
Keep watching our stuff go in place. These are big panels. Almost every project we do has tower cranes, and they fly them with these big cranes, and it's it's fascinating, and you get some satisfaction watching our stuff go in, and happy customers because I don't know how familiar you guys are with joisting conventionally and stuff. Carpenters typically are up there walking wall plates, setting a joist at a time, and blocks and beams and hangers, and with our product, you can fly a 8-foot by 50-foot panel, and 3 guys can have it set in 4 minutes, and you're done. And you got an 8-foot platform. They're never walking on 2x4s, and they're never walking plate. It's very safe. And so, but it's tempting to get out there and install it as well. But I got enough, balls in the air as it is. But there is a demand, right in the Bay Area right now. There's a big demand for more framing contractors. There's a kind of almost a shortage of big framers that can handle these big projects. So
yeah, well, and I can't imagine it's going to get any easier. You're not going to see any new framers come out right now, especially with the price of lumber and the way things are going right now. I mean, is that a sore subject for you? I apologize.
Oh, no. Well, I'm an eternal optimist, so I look at it in the situation we're in because I have a humongous facility. I bought this old lumber mill. I ended up buying that mill that
I was going to say that was probably my next question. I didn't want to cut you off in this one, but are you guys still in that same spot?
Obviously, yeah. And it's been people ask me all the time, why are you way up there in Susanville? Because everything we build is San Francisco, Oakland. Right. Like right now, we're doing projects in San Francisco, Oakland, Fremont, and Hayward. Yeah. And, but I've got 180 acre facility with about 150,000 square feet of under roof.
Yeah, that ain't cheap.
Kind of a dilapidated old building. Yeah. It would cost me millions upon millions to have a place like that.
Tens of millions. Yeah.
Or even over in the Central Valley, there's a lot of wall manufacturers over in the Modesto and Merced, the Central Valley of California. But so I got to truck my stuff a little farther than my competition, but I've got a facility that I could literally store 100 projects there if I needed to. Jeez. So that's an advantage for me with prefab, and I'm developing relationships with general contractors and owners and framers that they understand the process. Because prefabrication, I always stress the pre part. Hey, this is before. We need to be building this stuff before we need it.
While you're doing the podium, that way.
Right. Yeah. So
otherwise, you lose all the advantages.
Yeah. It's time.
Yeah. So trying to convince these people that hey, I need to be paid for materials stored on site. I need deposits. Because I'm a factory. I need to put a slot in my factory for your project. So in order to do that, I need a deposit because, it's like if you go to try to buy a house, they want a good faith deposit. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times the owners and well, what's this deposit for? I say, it's a good faith deposit. So make sure I'm going to spend all this time and effort to start modeling this building for you. And I need some assurances that you're not going to lead me down this road and then pull the plug on it. So it's taken a while to develop that with owners and contractors, but for the most part, it's been working out. And now with this lumber, I look at it as an advantage for someone like me because I just locked in a humongous job in downtown Oakland, or actually, it's in Alameda. And I told them the only way you can really lock this in is you got to assure me that I can buy all this lumber and deliver it to my site. It might be 7 months before you even need it. And they weren't crazy about it, but they agreed to it. And so that's an advantage that I have that a lot of my facility is big. Like I said, you can take 4 or 5 of the biggest wall manufacturers in the whole state, and they'd fit in one corner of my property.
Jeez, man.
That's awesome.
So I there's advantages to being way up there in our little town. And
so what's it like? Obviously, that first job you did, you kind of had to convince them, and there was a little bit of luck there, right?
Oh yeah, a lot of
It was
it's
good luck. It's not. It was bad
Well,
luck, right? Because
yeah.
it was a fire.
I'm looking up the fire
Yeah.
right now. That is,
So, I mean,
if
you
I'm seeing that correctly, that's pretty
yeah,
nice.
yeah. Was it the Mission Bay fire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Block 360. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yep.
that
2014,
one,
I think. Yeah.
that one was a little bit easier, right? Like because they needed you. They needed to be fast.
Yeah. It was a lot of it was just dumb luck and
Yeah.
timing, but
So
more
what's
than
been
anything-
like trying to have to convince some of these other builders and owners?
Oh, yeah,
you know what I mean,
well,
like
the
what
initial
we do works.
it takes a little convincing because like first of all, no one really does it. There's one other person kind of starting to do it, but it's that initial like the guy that first called me to do that first job. I know the guy pretty well, and I thank him all the time for having the guts, to say yes to me, because that takes a lot of guts because for something so unproven, and we learned a lot. I mean, we weren't nearly as good at it back then as what we are now.
Yeah.
So now with once a client has used my product, they never go back to conventionally roll and joist. So once I get a client, I don't worry. I don't have to advertise, I guess, is kind of what I'm saying. They find me, and I'm trying to get more diversified because you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. And so I've got some really big clients that are very well known, respected general contractors in the Bay Area that I've used my product pretty much almost on all their projects. So, and the product sells itself, but it's tough to convince these people. Obviously, the first thing they think is it's too expensive, and yeah, and
not realizing it's going to save them on the labor and
right.
scheduling and everything else.
Exactly. So the thing I tell them is I say, hey, I can give you a rough idea of what I think it costs you to put my product in, and you can plug the numbers. But I said, I don't know what it's worth on some 400 unit apartment building. I don't know what it's worth to the owner, the general contractor, and the framer that I might be a supplier to save 3 months on the project. But I guarantee it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And, I don't know how, that's something they got to figure out.
Yeah. That's a you job, right? Like, yeah.
So, but, and a lot of time, I try to explain to these guys, there's so much more to it than just 3 carpenters being able to set 4,000 or 5,000 feet a day of joist. You also don't have cleanup because our product comes fully sheathed. Everything's in it, and you set it down. The only thing you really have laying around the job after setting our stuff is empty glue bottles, from the subfloor adhesive, and empty nail, because they got to nail the leading edge of our plywood. We have a leading edge always resting on the previous panel. So you have no cleanup. There's no material handling. You don't have to unload a whole bunch of semi trucks of raw material and find a place to store it on site. Our product really works good in a downtown city
Tight area. Yeah.
Right, where there's like we just finished a project in South San Francisco, right near the San Francisco airport, where it's literally sidewalk on all 4 sides. And if they had tried to do that conventionally, it would have been just a nightmare. They'd have to unload semi trucks daily,
yeah,
waste and sheathing and stuff, and then cut it, install it, and then dispose of all the waste. There's just so much more to it than just the product itself. There's a lot of peripheral savings. Right.
So where are you finding guys and girls to work inside? I mean, are you looking
at our factory?
Yeah, is it carpentry experience that you need, or I mean, because it's so kind of like
being in such a small town, I don't have much of a labor pool to pull from.
Yeah,
and so most of them, I'd say 60% of my employees that are building these, when they started for me, they never built anything. They just heard that we were hiring and that we pay well, and we teach them how we want it built, because I kind of like it that way, because you might get someone that wants to do it their way. I said, I don't care how you do it as long as you do it my way. So.
I love that. That's something my dad would have said for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, finding, it really hasn't been that hard for me to keep. We have a really good team right now. the trickiest part for us is getting the 3D modelers, and because it's a kind of an age thing. Like me, I'm 52. I'm right on that cusp of I love computers and I pick up on them quickly. But like my father, he's an old retired carpenter. He works for me because he can't sit on the couch.
Right.
He's at my shop 40 hours a week. He's kind of like my QR guy. But he's fascinated with the 3D models and all that, and I've tried to kind of teach it to him. And you start explaining to him about applications and files, and you see his eyes roll back. And, I'm going to go build something, and so that's what a challenge for me is finding people. I can find young guys that are computer whiz bangs, but they've never built so much as a mailbox. They've never even built a birdhouse. Or I can find guys that are very experienced building stuff, but they just can't get into the computer side of it. So trying to find that happy medium. And so most of my computer modeler guys, I brought them up out of the shop, and I've never taken a computer modeling class in my life. I just got the software and
Figured it out.
Start clicking and punching around. Figure it out.
I'm a firm believer in curiosity. And I have some guy. I'm pretty curious, but we all all of us with software, we're all just using the tip of the iceberg of what it can do usually. And the software we use, it's a real basic 3D software. You can model cars and engine components with it, or you can do what I do with it. It's not specialized for construction, but I like it like that because we have full control over it. A lot of the software you buy that, like from, I don't want to pick on those guys, but MyTech and these guys, it's very good stuff but it has more control over itself than you do. And it's very expensive, and I'm a tightwad.
So, get into the advertising a little bit. I know you said you don't do a lot of it, but is there anything? I feel like there could be some merit to kind of putting yourself out there a little bit, just to kind of in some of those newer relationships, kind of prove your worth, or kind of have a portfolio, kind of like, hey, like, these are all the people I've worked for. This is what I've done. Like, kind of walking into some of those newer meetings with people.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of truth to that. And I finally got a website. I think about a year ago. I had my daughter do it for me.
A year ago. That's crazy.
Yeah. I never had a website. In fact, my emails, I feel terrible because we just use Gmail accounts. Since the day I started, we have been nonstop busy, always trying to keep up with.
No time to deal with the other crap.
I haven't had time for, and like I said, I've never had to. We've never been really slow. It's just one job after another, and usually they're just piled up. And my poor guys were working 6-10-hour days last year for about 4 months. And but I finally have a website. You can find us if you do a little Google search. And my daughter did a great job. And I actually just hired a guy, a new computer modeler that found me through my website. So that was cool.
There you go. Yeah.
That's one of the biggest benefits, I think.
Right. From a hiring standpoint. Yeah.
Because like I say, my product I've got good customers that pay well, that pay on time, that treat me right, and they got lots of work, and they keep me busy. But I do want to diversify. We're starting to do some custom homes up around Tahoe, and because you just never know when this apartment building craze, it could come to a stop. But I don't have a crystal ball, so.
So what's the future look like for you guys? Where is it something that you can replicate and put another house somewhere else? And
as far as scalability and all that, I actually have a daughter that lives in Daytona Beach, Florida. I have a house back there. She went to she got a wild hair, decided she wanted to be an aerospace engineer.
Wow.
And I think she just wanted to move as far away from Susan as possible.
Daytona's pretty far.
Yeah, and they have a world-renowned aerospace college there called Embry-Riddle. So she went back there. So we ended up buying a house there. She likes it there. She stays. She's engaged. Her and her fiance both work for me remotely as computer CAD designers. Her future husband's a mechanical engineer. She changed her major to civil engineering, which my wife got pissed because she, oh, wow, since you spent all this money to go to Florida, and you could have just went to UNR in Reno. But I don't regret it. So, but I am looking around in Florida because Florida is just crazy busy, and I've been actively looking to open a facility back there because I didn't realize it, but Florida, I looked at some commercial real estate back there, and holy smokes, they showed me this map, and in a 10-hour radius of Daytona, well, it's a little town inland called DeLand, 64 million people that you could reach in a 10-hour. It's insane because I was like, wow. And because California's, but you can't do that over here. We're because you get up into Georgia and stuff.
Yeah. I was gonna say not unless you're down by where we are, right? Like Orange County, LA. Yeah. And I've been approached from companies in LA. It's just to do some projects down there. That's just a little too. I don't need any more work. We're pretty overwhelmed as it is, just servicing this Bay Area market. I'm trying to crack the Reno Tahoe market. I have really not done anything over there, and it's only 80 miles from us. And it'd be nice to truck stuff 80 miles instead of 300 miles. But the money and the big money and stuff's in the Bay Area, and Reno they got hit hard in that recession 12 years ago, and the wages and stuff didn't quite catch up. Like I say, I pay well in my shop. We're a union shop as well. I'm signatory with the Carpenters Union. So I got my guys good benefits and, retirement and stuff like that. Cause I want my employees to have a career, not just a temporary job, so they can go find a better one, or until they can go find a better one.
Yep.
So.
Very cool, man. Well, we will, this has been awesome. It's fascinating to me. It's fun learning new stuff. And we've had a couple prefab guys on, but never somebody as specialized or as big as you are as quickly as you got to. So it's fun for sure. But before we let you run, let everybody know where to find you on your brand new shiny website and how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, you can find us at www.noblesconstructioncomponents.com. Nice long one.
Yeah.
And we have, our NCC is what we go by.
Yeah.
And we're starting to, we paint our logos on all of our stuff now. And,
there you go.
We got 10 or 15
branding,
a bunch of trailers, and so you'll see us on the highway up here. Our loads look like a Mad Max thing coming down the road. They're big and scary looking. And
that's funny.
We put about 2,200 square feet on a load of apartments, and
dang, man, jeez,
that's crazy.
That is crazy.
Very cool, man. We'll keep in touch, and we look forward to keeping in touch with you and see how things are going down the road, and maybe in Florida as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, thanks for reaching out to me. I think you found me on LinkedIn, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we'll get this posted everywhere and hopefully help you out a little bit.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you looking me up, and let's stay in touch.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks for jumping on, Tim.
Great story, Tim. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Have a good one.
All right.
Hey, thanks for listening. And if you've made it this far, go ahead and give us a like or 5 stars or whatever means you like us.
Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. And check out our website for more video content and extras.
While you're there, shoot us a message if you want to be a guest. We'd love to have you on.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.